Now, Cardinal George Pell's sexual abuse conviction has, of course, sent shockwaves right across the nation, but few would be feeling it as profoundly as those who have survived abuse by priests and clergy. Andrew Collins is one of the public faces of survivors in the Victorian city of Ballarat, which is really the epicentre of institutional sexual abuse of children, and coincidentally is George Pell's hometown. He joins us now, as well as Father Bob Maguire, who was the parish priest of St Peter and St Paul's Church in South Melbourne for 39 years. Gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you both this morning.
Thank you.
Andrew, might get some eyes on you. There you are. We might start with you. What was your first reaction to the news that Pell had been found guilty?
This was something that survivors knew for a long time. We met some of the survivors who had made allegations over, many years ago. So this wasn't new for us. I think, though, that we were quite surprised by a lot of the reactions that we saw, especially in town yesterday. Some of them were quite mixed. Some people were very angry and just thought the whole thing was a setup. Some people were very sad and upset. And being that Ballarat is George Pell's hometown, it is definitely very divided.
And Father Bob, if I could just ask you, how much of this is about the case itself specifically, this very specific allegation from 1996-97, and how much of it is about George Pell's role in not acknowledging the victims of sex abuse, in potentially moving around priests or covering up sex abuse to protect the interests of the church over the interests of the victims? Is this a bit like getting Al Capone for tax evasion because you couldn't get him for the thing we wanted to? Yeah,
but there's two Catholicism. There's Catholicism, which is the the institution, and there's my Catholicism, which is the movement. I've got a thing called hashtag Hanging with Jesus. Yes, that's my church, you see, and that's for the gentleman who's on now with you. He may remember that, in fact, I've been on about this for years, because, in fact, one of my earliest contacts in a parish called Braybrook was, in fact, a victim of student Pell. And at the time that we raised the issue publicly, we got clobbered. So that put us off the scene for a while. But still, I mean, the victims of clerical abuse. It's not Catholicism that's I think that is faulty. It's clericalism, and it's been dominating Catholicism since the bloody 4th century.
Well, how do we change that, though, Father Bob?
Well, you've got to change from the bottom up. If you see, even the Pope said, "Listen, girls, listen, boys and girls, we've got to change the church from the bottom up, not from the top down." He's going to do the top down, allegedly, but he's going to get in trouble now, you see, because, I mean, so many people are saying, well, the whole bloody show. Didn't I see, somebody said Catholicism is what? Is corrupt root and branch. Now,
do we need to let priests be able to marry, do you think, Father Bob?
I mean, it's got nothing to do with marrying priests and all that kind of thing. It's got to do with having healthy relationships, whether it's same-gender attracted relationships or whether it's whatever it is. The relationships are, in fact, what makes the world go round. And in fact, strangely enough, the word relationship is another word for religion. Religion is supposed to be a relationship.
Andrew, I was reading this morning that Ballarat actually has the highest incidence of suicide in Victoria. I guess that wouldn't come as any surprise to you, because clearly this is there's been a lot of issues there, and this is the peak of it. What's your view?
The last figures that I saw was that we were losing up to 5 people a week.
Yep.
Now, in a town of approximately 100,000 people, that is absolutely horrendous. We've been doing a lot of work with the community on suicide prevention, and it's just terrible. I don't know how you solve that, but in a town like Ballarat, you have to look and say, what's behind this? What has caused this? And I don't think, due to our history, that it's too much of a bow to draw to say that there's some real trauma.
Well, looking for answers then, Andrew. We've just heard what Father Bob said, changing it from the ground up. How do you think? What's your view on that?
There has to be two different approaches. Firstly, it's in the Pope's hands to change canon law to say, right, let's remove all of these pedophiles and those who covered up out of the church.
Yep.
But I'm just amazed that the Catholic people themselves aren't marching to the bishop's offices and saying, not in our name. These leaders are making these decisions and doing all this in our name to our church. They need to take control of their church and to try and fix it themselves. People are being quiet, and I think that they're quite complicit in the church's role here by not doing anything. If they are Catholics, they need to stand up and do something.
Andrew, we've seen a lot of commentary about the fact that this is to do with the institution of the church and not to do with one's individual faith. How are you at the moment, considering what you've experienced? And you mentioned before your local town is divided. How are you? Do you still believe?
No, I haven't believed for years. I consider myself to be an atheist, but I would not begrudge anyone having faith. If that gives them comfort and solace, I think that's wonderful. For me, though, no, I don't have any.
Father Bob, hearing that the church has lost a believer over this, I mean, that must be heartbreaking for you as a man of faith to think that, you know, much of your flock is leaving.
Oh, I don't know about that. Look, it's out. It's out. Like the ABC, it's our church. It's not somebody else's church. It's ours. We are in possession of the church. And about 30 years ago, I think we had a thing called the Church of Tomorrow, where in fact we would be lay-led. We would be little churches and we would be lay-led, and the clergyman would in fact be at the service of the local church community. Now, that was swept away when George became the Archbishop of Melbourne, unfortunately, or coincidentally. I don't know. It was coincidentally, because we said, behold, we've got a plan for tomorrow and lay people are going to run the show. No, he said, not in my lifetime.
And Father Bob, it's certainly George Pell was a very polarising figure in the church, as you and I both know.
Yeah.
Just to go back to something you said at the beginning, though, you said you've spoken to a parishioner who said that he himself was abused by George Pell personally when he was a younger man.
Yeah.
So you actually believe that aside from Cardinal Pell's role in the leadership of the church or moving priests around or whatever that may be, that he himself personally committed child sex abuse?
Oh, yeah, we went to the wall over that. I mean, it didn't do my so-called career much good, you see. But then again, you've got to cop it, you see. You've got to cop it sweet because survivors or victims are priority number one, you see. Hashtag hanging with Jesus. Well, if anybody's hanging with Jesus, it's the poor bloody victims and survivors.
Indeed. Well, we just heard from Andrew, one of his solutions. Why is the flock, all the Catholics, marching toward their leaders and saying, we demand that you do something about this? Where is that parade?
Oh, you see, the Roman Catholic thing, the Irish Catholics, we were under the hammer for about 100 years and we got used to the idea, oh my God, they're all after us, they're all after us. And now when something like this happened, when we've become upwardly socially mobile over the last 50, 60 years, state aid for Catholic schools and all that, well then you see we've become institutionalised in our own mentality and we've become what? Garrison Catholics. To protect the institution rather than protect the individual sufferers. Now, there's not much more I can do about it. I'm a card-carrying Roman Catholic priest and proud of it. And at the same time, all I can do is run my foundation, which in fact says, hey, let's cut out the bullshit and let's talk about not only why people are suffering, but just let's walk with them and suffer with them. That's the idea of Catholicism at its best.
And the teachings of Jesus. Andrew, if I can ask you...
hanging, I like that, hashtag hanging with Jesus.
Andrew, if I can ask just for an insight into a survivor or a victim.
I speak with respect, with respect, Andrew. I'm speaking with respect to you. I'm not trying to be funny about it all.
Yes, of course.
And Andrew, if I can just ask for a survivor of sexual abuse, clerical sexual abuse, there is a lot of criticism saying survivors or victims change their stories, that they don't admit it because often people never believe them. For you and many people in Ballarat, there's years of shame, there is guilt, there is substance abuse. This has ripped hundreds of lives apart and also all of their families.
Absolutely. It's divided families. It has, ended friendships. And we've got to remember that there are so many survivors that have taken their own lives as well. Mm-hmm. It really has destroyed the fabric, I think, of Ballarat's community. Yes. How do we rebuild that? I really don't know. But one thing that survivors have constantly asked for is ongoing help and support to those who need it. And I think that's absolutely crucial. If you look at a town like Ballarat, we don't have after-hours psychiatric help.
Look at that.
We have such a huge suicide rate, and there's nothing there.
Yes.
We see that the government has put in place a redress scheme. Now, people will argue about the amount of compensation that was paid, but when the ongoing care and support was cut down to a maximum, you remember a maximum of $5,000 for counselling and ongoing support, that does absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. And I think that survivors came to the end of the Royal Commission wondering what changed. They bared their souls, but this bubble of hope was created, and then at the end of it, nothing's changed. The bubble's burst, and there are a lot of survivors at the moment that are literally at death's door.
Yeah.
I've been on suicide watch for a while. I'm back to weekly sessions with a psychiatrist, and my mood is just up and down like a yo-yo. And I think I'm quite good compared to some of the others that I know. It's really had a heavy impact. When the national apology was given, I had some people say to me the day after that I must be so glad this is all over.
That's no
What's
good.
Over?
We hope
nothing.
We hope and pray that you can find your peace, Andrew. You have been so brave to talk to us this morning.
Yes,
and our
thank
thoughts
you.
and lots of love are with you. And Father Bob, we also love chatting with you. Of course, you'll have a heck of a homily to deliver this weekend, I am sure. And don't forget, anyone who's been watching this at home and feeling fragile, there is help. Lifeline is always available, 131114. It is a 24-hour number for help at any time. So please, if you are feeling any pain, any worry, get in touch with them.